Hello everyone, welcome to JSON Path course Query Language for JSON. This is a short course from Software Testing Mentor and RCV Academy, and in this course we will learn all about JSON Path, which is query language for JSON. Now why do I come up with this particular short course? The reason is we need to understand the query language for JSON so that we can extract the information that we need from the JSON file. JSON files are very widely used. So if you are doing the API testing or the web service testing through SOAP UI or Postman, you will interact with the JSON files a lot. And this short course will help you to find the relevant information out of JSON files, the payload when you are doing the API testing, or even if you are a developer, it will bring you some understanding about the JSON path. So I'll cover the introduction of the JSON, what exactly JSON is, what is JSON path, then what is JSON path notation, the operators. Along with that, I'll cover how to extract values from JSON, which is very important. So this will be the examples, along with the examples to extract the values, and this will help you in your API testing or in your development activities a lot. Then we'll cover more examples on JSON path filters. So these are some of the key topics that we'll be covering, along with the examples, hands-on exercises that will help you to learn JSON path and will really bring a lot of value when you are going to do the API testing or the development wherein you want to query JSON files through the JSON path, which is query language for JSON. So please go ahead, enroll, and happy learning. Thank you.
Hello guys, welcome to JSON Path tutorial from rcvacademy.com. In this tutorial series, I'll cover all about JSON and JSON Path and how you can use JSON Path to extract the required information that you're looking for from your JSON document. Okay, so before we get into the details and the actual working and how to show the examples into the detail, I want to cover a brief about the JSON and JSON path in this particular series as well. So what exactly is JSON? So JSON is a lightweight data interchange format which is used to interchange data between the computers over the internet, over the network, or within the same systems as well. So for example, you want to communicate the information from one computer to another computer, then JSON is the format that is utilized to interchange the information between the computers, between the machines over the internet. And so for example, we have already covered in SOAP UI that the REST APIs, wherein we were getting the responses in the form of JSON, okay, or we were sending the information as the JSON data. Now that's where the JSON is helpful to interchange the information or data between the computer, and it stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's a text format and it is language independent, so it is pretty easy to read and write. It is human readable and can be written, and also very easy for machines to parse and generate. So for the computers as well, it's pretty easy to generate and parse the JSON file. Now, primarily, JSON is built on two structures. The first is the collection of name-value pairs, which in many programming languages you can refer it to as an object or dictionary, whatever name you want to use it for. And then the second one is the ordered list of values, which is basically in the programming language referred to as an arrays. Okay, so first is the collection of name value pair and then ordered list of values. So I'll deep dive into all these details with an example, so don't worry about that. Now coming back to JSON path. So what exactly is JSON? So we have covered what is JSON briefly. Now JSON path is a query language for JSON. So when you have a JSON document, or if you would have gone through my SOAP UI tutorial, wherein we used to get the responses in JSON format, then we used to query the data within that JSON document. And to query that data, we used to write the query, and that query or the language is basically the JSON path. We are utilizing the query language JSON path. It's a tool to query your JSON document and get the required information that you're looking for from the JSON document. It lets you to extract the segment of information from the JSON document. So not necessarily if we are getting a response of 1,000 lines or 100 lines of JSON response, we won't be needing, or the program or the computer program that needs that just a subset of that information. So it won't necessarily need the whole 100 lines of response that is sent to the program. So JSON path helps to get a subset of that response and pass it on to the program. And JSON path is similar to XPath. So XPath is pretty popular, and you have, if you have a little bit of idea about the Selenium automation, you would have heard about the XPath. Like XPath is the query language for XML responses or XML files or document. Similarly, JSON path is the query language to traverse through the JSON and get the required information from the JSON document. So that's a brief about the JSON and JSON path. Now let's go into the document, one of the online JSON editor. So what I'll be using as part of this tutorial is that I'll be using JSONPath.com, which is JSON Path Online Evaluator. And on this evaluator, you can basically paste the JSON, any sample JSON that you have, and then write your JSON path here and then evaluate the results and see what results you are getting as part of the JSON path that you have written here. Now, once we are done with this, we'll use the same JSON path and go into SoapUI and also try to query, use this JSON path syntax in SoapUI and show you how it is fetching the information in SoapUI as well. Now here, if I go through this JSON that is available here, this is the default JSON that is available on JSON Path Online Evaluator, which is JSONPath.com. And here you can see, if you see, this is a dictionary in the curly braces, and then this is the name value pair that we were talking about. So if we go to the slide again, you can see that primarily JSON is built on two structures, which is collection of name value pair and ordered list of value. So ordered list of value is basically the array with indexes and then the collection of name value pair. So if you see this example here, you have the first name and the value and the last name and the value. So these are the that's the first structure, okay, or the collection of name value pair. You will see everywhere that there is a collection of name value pair, and then there is an address. Within the address you have another dictionary or object, you can say, another curly brace. You can use any name, so you can say it a dictionary or an object, and within this object or dictionary you have again name value pair of street address, city, postal code, and then in the phone numbers you can see you have the square bracket. So when there is a square bracket, which means an array, okay, or the ordered list of values, because you can see in this particular array you have another dictionary or object, and there are two objects within this array. So within these two square brackets there are two objects. First one is the type with iPhone and the number, and then second one is type home with the number, okay, because there could be multiple phone numbers for a person, and that's where the array comes in picture, okay. So you can have the ordered list of values or and the collection of name value pair, and that's the basis of your JSON document. So dictionary, within the dictionary you can have multiple dictionaries, or array, and within array you can have multiple dictionary and the name value pair to define all the data within the JSON document. So that is a brief about the JSON and JSON path for this tutorial. In further tutorial, what we'll do is we'll get a sample JSON file, and then we'll start writing JSON path syntax and start evaluating the results. So hope you like the tutorial. Please do share and subscribe, and thank you for watching. Hello and welcome to JSON Path tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to understand about the JSON path notation. So in the previous tutorial, we had covered a brief about JSON, what is JSON, and then what is JSON path, and then we dig deeper, a little bit deeper into the technicalities and the advantages of both JSON and JSON path. Now, In this tutorial, we'll understand what is JSON path notation. So JSON path notation is nothing but it is used to fetch the nodes and their connections or their child nodes or adjacent nodes in the JSON document or JSON file or response. So any JSON document or in JSON format that you have, JSON path notation is the way to fetch the node or the child node that you're looking for in that particular JSON document. Now, there are two ways, two styles of JSON path notation. The first one is the dot notation, which you can see here as an example, dollar dot data, the zero index, and then the GID. And the second one is the bracket notation, wherein instead of dot, we are using the bracket, the square brackets. Both of these notations will return the same results. So it's just the way that you prefer, you can utilize that and they'll return the same values from the example that you see here. So in the right hand side I have the sample JSON. So if you see this is the sample JSON, and if we talk about a little bit about the JSON path notation, say for example the dot notation, you can see the dollar, which represents the root node, which is basically the curly bracket at the top here, right? So that's where the dollar or the root node starts, right? That's where the whole document is starting, the JSON document. And then the child node, so basically to represent the child node from the root node, you start with the dot. In the dot notation, you start with a dot and then the child node. So next node is basically the data. So that's why we have mentioned here dot data. And then the data has the 5, because it's an array. If you see the square bracket here, that's an array which contains 5 objects or dictionaries. So the curly braces here, these you can say either dictionary or objects which have certain elements here, right? For example, GID, name, resource type, etc. So when we say data 0, which is the index of the first element, right? So this will fetch the first element of this data array. Okay, so and then we are again saying within this first element, we are again saying dot the child of this first element. Okay, so dot GID. So we are basically in this node, when we come into this first element here, right, then we are fetching the GID. So that's the first notation. Now coming back to the bracket notation, it is pretty similar. Instead of dot, we just replace it with the square bracket. Okay, and then in the single quotes we put the data or the element that is there, the nodes that are there into the single quotes, and then rest all remains same. So basically your index still remains same, and then within the next bracket you just put in single quote whatever value you are trying to fetch. Now let's use these examples and go to the JSON Path online evaluator. So in this JSON Path online evaluator, we have copied the JSON that is there on the screen here, right? So this is the sample JSON that I'm working with. So I have already copied that on JSON Path online evaluator. And now let's try to fetch the results using the dot notation and the bracket notation. So to start with, dollar is the root node. Now you can see in the evaluation results, as soon as I put dollar, you can see the whole file getting listed or whole document getting listed. Now to fetch the child node, if I put dot and then data, okay, so again you can see the whole document getting fetched. Now if I want to fetch the first element, which is basically the index 0, I just provide 0 and then close the square braces. Now I want the value of GID in the first element, so just put GID. And now you can see that particular value of the GID has been fetched using the dot notation. Now going back to the bracket notation, we will delete it. Now it will again start with a dollar, the root node, and then the bracket, single quote, and we'll say data, and again single quote, close bracket, and open square bracket, and provide the index. So for example, in this scenario, I'm looking for GID or name, which is at the second position or second index. So I'll put 1, okay, and then again square bracket and then put the name. Okay, so again single quotes and put name, close the single quote and close the bracket. So this is the second notation, so dot notation and the bracket notation. So the result will be similar if you change it to say 0, which was the first example that we took GID. So it's returning 62676 in the bracket notation. If we change it to dot notation, dot data and then the index dot GID, you will see 62676 is the evaluation result. So it doesn't matter which notation you use, you will get the same evaluation result. Now, using the same evaluation in your SOAP UI, okay, you can directly use this and go to SOAP UI, and in the assertion you can try to practice these. So if I go and copy and paste this in the JSON path expression, click on select from current, it will fetch that same result. If I change it to bracket notation and change it to just rename all the things as per the bracket notation, the result will still remain same. If I say select from current, you will see it will give me similar result, right? So that's pretty much all about the JSON path notation. Pretty simple, pretty easy to memorize and learn. So just make note of that there are two styles. Make use of any style that you're comfortable with. So I hope you like the tutorial. Please do share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Hello and welcome to JSON Path tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to learn about the JSON path operators. So in last tutorial, we had understood about the JSON path notation, and there are two types of notation, dot and bracket notation. If you haven't seen the previous tutorial, please go and watch it before you continue further with this tutorial. So in this tutorial, we are going to understand some of the key JSON path operators that are very frequently used. So the first operator that we are going to discuss is the root node, right? So in previous tutorial as well, I have covered an example which had the root node or the dollar sign. So dollar denotes the root member of the JSON structure. Okay, so it denotes the root node or root member of any JSON file that you are getting, or JSON document, or the response. Say for example, in the sample JSON that you see here, that the curly brace at the top is basically, when we say dollar, we are denoting the root node or the curly brace at the top. And then say here, so for example, dollar dot data dot GID, which is basically what it will fetch is, it will start, dollars is basically starting at the curly brace, and then dot data is coming to the child node, which is the data, right? And then because data is an array, then we have to specify the index of the array. It has 5 elements here, or 5 objects here, right? So we have to specify the index or the location of the dictionary or the object for which we are going to access the child node. So here we are interested in accessing GID for the first node. That's why we have specified 0 as an index, and then dot notation again to access the child GID. Okay, so dollar denotes the root node, and then at the rate denotes the current node. Okay, so when we say at the rate, we are basically saying whatever criteria we specify. So for example, in this example here, when we say dollar dot data, then we are saying dollar is the root node, dot data, we are at the data at the child node, and then in the square bracket, instead of specifying the actual number or actual index number, we are basically searching based on certain criteria. Okay, and for that criteria, we are utilizing the current node or the at the rate sign. So when we say at the rate, right, we can specify the name whichever is present in that particular node, and then we can specify the criteria that based on this node you give me the specific nodes. For example, here it will search for the name which has the value as RCV Academy test project and return this third value. Okay, so it will return the whole data that is present here. So the dictionary here or the object. So it will return GID, name and resource. So it will return the whole object based on this search criteria. So at denotes the current node. Then there is a wildcard, which is the star sign, and star sign returns all the elements within specified scope. So for example, you are looking for all the elements within this data array. Then you just say $.data star and will return all the elements within this particular array. Then dot is to fetch the child node that we have already seen, that you are starting with the root node and then dot notation. If you're using the dot notation, it will be used to fetch the next node, which is the child node, which is dot data, and then again dot GID, which will fetch the child node of this particular element. So dot is used to fetch the child node. Then there is a question mark, which is to query all items that meet certain search criteria, which we have already seen here in this example. If you can see that we start with a question mark, which is basically saying that we want to search all the file or the elements in the file based on certain criteria, and that's why we have used question mark and the current node. So at the rate dot name or dot resource type or dot GID, depending on what values you want to search with, you just provide with the at the rate dot name or dot .gid and provide the criteria. Then we have the subscript operator, which is nothing but it denotes the child element of the current element by the name or index. So here you can see we have searched the node by the name, and here we have searched the node by the index. Okay, we have specified the node, the index 0 to get the detail of this particular node. Now let's go ahead and see all these examples in the evaluator. Okay, so we'll go to the JSON Path online evaluator. Okay, so the first thing is basically to fetch the root node. Okay, so if I just say $, you will see it has fetched the whole node. Okay, the whole file here. So that's the root node. With the dot notation, if I say data, it will pull everything inside it unless and until we specify the index of the value that we are looking for. Okay, so if I say 0, it will fetch the dictionary or object that is at the index 0. If you want different index 2 or 3, it will fetch the details accordingly. Now once you have got your specified object or dictionary and you want a sub element of it or the child element within it, you again use the dot notation to access the child element and provide any item or any name that is within this particular dictionary or object. So for example, I want name, it will pull the name. I want GID, it will pull GID, and if I want resource type, I'll just put resource type, and it will pull resource type value in the evaluation results. Now you can use the same details and go back to SOAP UI and use the same expression, JSON path expression, and see the result in SOAP UI. So the next query, which is very important to understand, we'll use the second one in the online evaluator. So here I want to use the second query here. So here what I'm doing is I'm searching the data or the node based on certain criteria. Okay, so search criteria. So let me write it down rather than copying and pasting. So I'm at the root node and then the data. Now I want to search based on certain criteria. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start with the square bracket. Instead of specifying the index of the node, what I'll do is I'll say question mark. I want to search based on certain criteria, and then the bracket and at the rate. So at the rate is the current node. So I want to specify the current node, and then dot based on whatever node you want to specify. So for example, I want to specify name. So I'll say name and then provide the value. Okay, so whatever name you're looking for. So for example, you are looking for RCV Academy test project, close the quotes and then close the braces and close the square brackets. So now you can see I have searched the node with a certain criteria. So I have used a question mark and then the current node, specifying the current node name and providing the value, whatever the value is there in the name, and then it has provided me the evaluation result. Now, what is the advantage of using this search criteria is because, say, for example, you are getting response or dynamic response and these values, right? So for example, in the data at in one response there are say 5 projects, and second time you query there are 10 projects, and you don't know what order this data will come through, right? So there is a one item in this response, for example GID for each project, which is fixed, but you don't know the order. So instead of specifying the actual index, say 0 1 2 3 4, the order might change. So what you can do is you can just specify the name, and it doesn't matter where this particular object is in the response, it will still be able to fetch the value of the node. So within this response, if you want to get more details, for example, you are looking for GID, you will still be able to find the GID for that particular node, even though you don't know at which index this particular node will come in the next response that you will trigger, in the next request that you will trigger. Okay, so that's the advantage of using the search criteria. So I hope I have covered most of the options here in JSON Path operators. So that's pretty much about the JSON Path operator. Hope you like the tutorial. Please do share and subscribe, and thank you for watching. Hello and welcome to JSON Path tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to look into some of the JSON Path examples. So in previous tutorials, we have seen some of the concepts, some of the key things that are required in JSON Path and forming the JSON Path. Now let us dig deeper into the JSON Path examples and see some of the very frequently used JSON paths in the API testing. Now, I have noted some of the examples here that you can see to figure out the first element in array, and there are 9 examples which are sort of related with the arrays in JSON response or JSON document. So let's go ahead and start to figure out one by one how you can write the JSON path for these examples. So let's see and figure out how you can figure out the first or find out the first element in an array. So we have already seen this, but just to rephrase, I'll go through and cover the first example as well. So the data that we'll be using, or the JSON file we'll be using, is basically displayed on the screen, the sample JSON, and we'll go to the JSON online evaluator where I have copied this file already. So the first example says is to figure out the first element in array. Okay, so here you can see the data has 5 elements in array. Okay, and we want to find out the first element in the array. So how we can do it? We'll start with the root node, which is dollar, and then dot, and then the data. Okay, and then how you need to find out the first element is basically to provide the index of the first element. So index start with 0. If you just provide 0 there, and that's what the data is returned. So that's the dictionary or the object that has been returned. So this is how you will get the first element of an array. Okay, so within an array, if you are again looking for some more details, if for example you're looking for the GID, you just say dot and then GID, and it will display the GID of that particular element. Now going to the second example, select array elements from start index and up to index. So we have seen some of the operators in previous tutorial. So in this tutorial we'll also cover a few more operators. So there are a lot more operators that you can go through. You can figure out, just try googling, just try to Google on the web, and you'll be able to get a lot more details around all the operators that are used. But I'll try to cover the maximum operators that will be required in the API testing. So selecting array elements from the start index and up to index, it will require another operator which we'll cover now. So let me open the online evaluator. So we want to select, say for example, I want to select first 3 elements. Okay, so I want to provide the index range. Okay, so how you will do it? You will provide the range. So for example, I want to select the first 2 elements. So you can say 0 and then colon, this is another operator, okay, and then the end range. So for example, you want to select two elements, you have to provide the range up to 2, and then it will select the first two elements. So the last number that you provide or the last index that you provide, that is not included. So if you see this data here, this is the 0 index, 1 and 2. So whatever you provide the last number, that is not included. If you want the 3 indexes or 3 values there, then you have to provide the end range as 3. So it will return the first 3 elements or first 3 objects in the JSON file. Okay, so let me get this copied and I'll paste it here. So that's the example how you will select the array elements from the start index and end index, and colon is the operator that you will be using. The next operator is selecting the first n elements of the array. Okay, so how will you do this? Just go to the online evaluator. Okay, start with $.data and then the array index, start with colon and provide the value as 2 and then close square braces. So this will display the first 2 objects or dictionaries of this particular array. So you can see the first one is IT project plan here and the second sample project. So it will display the first 2 elements of the array. Okay, copy it, I'll paste it here. Now selecting the last n element, so here n is basically 2, so we have specified the value of n is 2. Select last n element, so depending the number that you want to select from the last. So for example, you want to select just the last element or last 3 elements, how will you can do it? So you go to the editor and specify, say I want to select the last 2 elements, so just say -2 and then colon, and that's it. So it will select the last 2 elements or last 2 objects of an array. Okay, so you can see RCV Academy demo project 1 has been selected twice because these are the 2 last elements of an array. Just copy this and paste it here so that it's helpful for you later. So last element in array, that's another good one. So if you want to select the last element, what you need to do is you just say -1, same thing. Oh, sorry, -1 and colon. That's it. So that selects the last element. So it's not much different between the previous one. You just need to change the value here. If you want to select the 2 elements, you select -2. If you want to select last 3 or last 4, you just change the value here to -2, 3, 4, whatever you want. Okay. So let me copy and paste this. So this is the last element in the array. Then select multiple elements in the array. Okay. So if you want to select multiple elements, say for example, I want to select element 1, first element, fifth element, and ninth element. Okay. So here we have 5 elements. I want to select first, third, and fifth. Okay. So what you need to do is you just say first, comma, 0, because index starts with 0, comma, 2, comma, 4. Okay, and now you can see IT project plan, and then the second one that is selected is RCV Academy test project, and the last one has been selected with the GID 66078, which is RCV Academy demo project 1. Okay, so this is how you will select multiple elements in an array depending whatever is your requirement. Now, name of all projects in the JSON document. So for example, you want to fetch the names of all the projects. Okay, and that's the only requirement you are looking for. So how you can do it? So we'll start with data and then just put a wildcard star. Okay, because you're looking for all the objects or all the dictionaries within this array, and then you just say dot and name, and it will display all the names of all the projects within or all the dictionaries within this array. Okay, so that is displaying the name. And similarly, if you want to fetch any other details, for example, I want GID of all these projects, you just say change it to GID. Okay, now the next one is to name of first 2 elements. Okay, so for example, you're looking for name of first 2 elements, so it's basically same as we did for the array. So select the first n elements. So this is the first 2 elements that we took. So $.data and then colon 2. So we'll use similar concept. So we'll say first 2 elements first. Okay, and then dot name, and it will display the name of the first two elements in the array. Okay, similarly, not much difference, the last two elements will be similar as we displayed the last n elements, like -2 colon. So we'll use the similar concept here. Okay, so I want the name of the last two elements, so I'll say -2 colon and the name. You can see the name has been displayed for the last two. If I want to display the last three, just change it to last three, and last three names have been displayed for the last three elements of the array. Now let me change it to -2 and copy and paste. So you can see here that most of the examples that I have covered here are related to array, and this will be very commonly used. So please go ahead and try to search the examples on the internet. You will find a lot more examples, and try to do all those exercises or read the concepts that are available to master the JSON path. So that's pretty much about the JSON path examples. In next tutorial, I'll cover a few more examples. Hope you like the tutorial. Please do share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Hello and welcome to JSON Path tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to cover one more operator and the examples of filter. So filter you will be using pretty frequently, and the recursive descent as well. So recursive descent is an operator which searches for the specified property name recursively. So if you have a JSON file and you specify the recursive descent operator, it will search through the whole file and return an array of all the values that match the property name that you specify. Okay, so let's see how it's done. So I have taken another example, another sample JSON this time, and in the JSON Path online evaluator, I have pasted the file already here. So with the recursive descent or recursive descent operator, what you can do is, say for example, I specify the recursive descent operator and I say I want to get an array or a list of all the values that have the property name. Okay, so if I specify the name, you can see that all the names within this file are displayed. So wherever in this file recursively, whether it's in the parent node or child node, it goes through and figures out all the properties or all the names in this file. So for example, the first one you see is the project here. So this is the first one which is in the parent node, and then it recursively goes through and figures out all the names that are available. So if you see here, that's the first name, second name, third name, fourth name, fifth, sixth, and seven names. Okay, so these are all the names that are printed here. I believe there are 8 names altogether. So all the 8 names, the last one is here. So these are all recursively printed on the screen. Now if you are looking for any other property, you just need to provide the other property. So for example, GID is what I'm looking for, or I'm looking for the owner, say for example. Okay, it will return the owner wherever the owner field is present in this particular file. So that's the beauty of recursive operation, and very, very helpful. And the next thing we want to cover is the filter example. So the filter example that we'll use is, we'll use the logical and logical or operator to filter some of the content in a JSON file. There are certain operators supported in the filters. For example, you see the equal to, not equal, greater than, equal to, less than or equal to. Then this operator, equal to with tilde, is for the regular expression, and then you have the negation, logical and logical or operator. So we'll cover logical and or operator in the filter example of this tutorial. So let's go to the JSON Path online evaluator and let's try to use some of the filter examples. So to start with, we'll start with the root node, so $dot, and then we need to go to the array index first. So let's copy this whole file and I'll put it in the JSON formatter, which is already here, and format this file first, change the code to tree view so that we can understand this file first. So you can see that this data dictionary or the object has 20 items in it or objects in it, and within these 20 items you can see there is a dictionary owner which has three objects in it, then the workspace, then the team, and then there are two arrays. So array members contains two items, two dictionaries or two objects, and followers contains two objects as well. Okay, and then there are certain values there. So let's try to work on the followers or members and try to filter some of the things there, okay, from members and followers. Okay, so going back to online evaluator, so we'll start with the, say, dot data, and then because workspace is the child of the members is the child of data, so we'll say members. Okay, and now you can see in the evaluation results there are two elements or two objects that are being displayed. Okay, now here we'll use the filter. Okay, so we'll start with question mark and then bracket and then at the rate dot. So here in members we'll say name. Okay, so we'll say name is equal to, so there are two names which are same, so let's go to the followers rather than members because we want to filter on the names. So we'll go to followers. Okay, so there are the names are XYZ and ABC. So we'll start with the question mark bracket at the rate dot name is equal to quotes XYZ, and then just use logical AND operator and say at the rate name is equal to quotes ABC. All right, and close the bracket and close the square bracket. So now you can see here that there are no match found. Why? Because the name, the followers, there is no node in the followers, or there is no index or no dictionary or object in the followers which has both these names XYZ and ABC. Now if you change this operator to OR, you will get both the results. So because what I'm saying here is, what I'm filtering on is, I want to filter the followers who have the name XYZ or name ABC. Okay, so that's basically how you use your filter operator. So if you want to filter on something with the value or with the operator or, then it's going to display the results wherever that particular value is present. Okay, so I'm looking for name where the name is XYZ and the node or the object where the name is ABC. Okay, but if I say and, then there is no node which matches that, and because of that there are no results. But if I change this and to add resource type, resource underscore type is equal to user. Okay, resource type, yeah. Okay, now you can see that a node or an object has been displayed, because with this logical AND operator what I am saying is that return me the node or return me an object under follower array which has the name XYZ and resource type is user. Okay, so that is why I am getting the result being displayed here, because the name is XYZ and resource is user. If I change it to OR, then I'll get two results here, because it is looking for name XYZ, which is it is getting in this particular node or in this particular object, or the resource type is user, which it is getting in both. Okay, so wherever it will get any of these values, user or XYZ, it will display all the results. So this is basic about the filter operator using and or, logical and logical or. Let's go back to the slide here. So now you can see that we have covered the JSON path recursive descent operator and the filter examples using the logical and logical or operator. So that's pretty much about the JSON path tutorial and operators. Please feel free to drop your message, comment on the video if you are looking for any JSON path that you are not able to figure out, and I'll make sure that I provide you the help that is required in order to figure out the JSON path that you're looking for. And in case there are a lot of queries around the complex JSON path that you are not able to figure out, I'll also come up with the new tutorial with all those examples in the Q&A section of my channel. So hope you like the tutorial. Please do share and subscribe. Thank you for watching.